I love cooking and I really love baking. And one of my favorite things to make is a cake. Let's make a delicious yellow butter cake, vanilla cake together. Here's what we need to do. First, we want to prepare the pan because once the batter is ready, it needs to go into the pan and go into the oven. By the way, I already set the oven at 350. That's the temperature at which we're going to bake. It takes a little time to heat up. So the first thing in making a cake is not even making it. It's getting the oven ready. So the oven is set at 350 and I've got a 9-inch cake pan here and I'm going to grease it, butter it. You could use oil. I'm going to use a little bit of butter and I've kept some paper on it so I can keep my hands from getting too messy, but you could put it on your fingers and rub it in. You could use oil and use a brush, but I like to just take this little bit of butter, held onto it with the butter wrapping, and I'm just giving it a good, very generous coating of oil. And the reason we do this is so the cake will come out. It's very nice for the cake to be in the pan, but it's even better for it to come out and we can, set it up on a cake stand and it'll look really pretty. So I'm just going around, I'm holding the back of this paper and I'm adding lots and lots of butter. And if there's a little bit extra, a little more in one place than the other, don't worry. In this situation, it's better to have too much than not enough. So now I've got my very generously buttered cake pan and I'm gonna put in a little bit of flour. The flour is insurance. So I'm gonna take one of my measuring cups and add just like a teaspoon of flour and spread it all around. I'm tapping because I want to have this, again, is also insurance for the cake to come out. I worry more about the bottom. Well, I don't worry at all. I'm making a cake, it's fun. But I want to pay close attention to getting the bottom really well covered. The sides don't matter as much because once it's baked, you can go around the sides gently and loosen it up if it's stuck there. But if it sticks to the bottom, we've got a problem. Now, I want to bring my flour back here because I want to not have any, I want to have enough, but not too much. So I'm going to tap on the side, and that's what I want. So now I've got a buttered or greased and floured cake pan ready to go. We'll come back to that. My butter is nice and soft, so I'm going to set that aside, and let's measure the flour. Now there's two kinds of measuring cups that you're gonna need when you're baking a cake. One is a dry measuring cup, it's flat on top, and the other is a pitcher, a liquid measuring cup, and it has a spout and a pitch just like if you were pouring coffee, and that is because when you're measuring liquids, you need to have plenty of extra room so that you can eyeball it, so that you can look on the side and make sure that you've got enough. When you're measuring something dry, like sugar or flour, you want to be able to go across the top and sweep away any extra. So if you only have one or the other, you can work it out. But in a perfect world, if you're setting up your perfect kitchen, the dry measuring cups and the liquid measuring cups have a different job. They do different things. So when I'm measuring flour, I like to have it out in a big bowl, or sometimes if you've got a big canister, and I've got a whisk. If you have a whisk, you can use that to fluff up the flour and just make sure that there are no lumps and that it's all gonna measure up in a fluffy way. If you don't have a whisk, don't worry. You can use a slotted spoon, and I'm just scooping and lifting, and I want it to be fluffy and light. And if you don't have a slotted spoon, even just a wooden spoon, you just want to lift it up and make it all loose and fluffy. Okay, my flour's ready. I'm gonna use, so I need a cup and a half of flour. This is 1 cup. So I'm going to use, I'm not gonna go in and scoop and pack it down. I'm gonna use another measuring cup, or you might have some kind of a big spoon to shake in, and notice I'm letting it rain in a lot more flour than I want. I want it to be overflowing. I want it to be stacked up. So here I go, and I'm gonna take this is a plain butter knife. I'm gonna take the flat side, not the rounded side, and just tap along, tap, 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 so that it's gonna be even all the way through, no pockets, and then I'm gonna sweep across, and that gives me a perfect cup. And I'm gonna put this out into another place so I can mix it together. That's my cup, and then I need a half cup. I need a cup and a half, and this is 3/4, so I gotta do some math. I'll use a 1/4 cup. But now remember, I'm not gonna scoop in like I want to. I'm gonna now again use another measuring cup, and I'm gonna scoop very gently and lift it up and shake it and shout. I'm snowing, I'm making snow, I'm making snowfall. I'm gonna let it be a snowfall into my measuring cup, tap, 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 and sweep. And that's a 1/4 cup, but I need a 1/2 cup. 2/4 is a 1/2. You get to do a math review sometimes when you're baking. And a little bit more, and again, I'm showering it in, and I have too much is just right, and I'm tapping, and then I'm sweeping, and there I go, 1.5 cups of flour. And a lot more than I needed. I'll just put this carefully back into my canister and use it another day. And I'm using all-purpose flour. You can use cake flour. That's if you have a recipe that says cake flour, use that. You'd measure it exactly the same way. But today we're using all-purpose flour, which is the easiest kind to find. Okay, next thing, I need to add to the cake flour the other dry ingredients: baking powder and salt. And the baking powder and salt are called leavenings. Leavening means to lighten, to lift up. And putting baking powder and salt into the flour means that when the batter gets hot in the oven, it's going to make little air bubbles and rise up. So that's the difference between a cookie, where you're maybe not adding any baking powder at all, and a cake where you're adding some. The cookies may rise a little bit because they've got egg in them, but baking powder and a salt combination, or sometimes baking soda and salt. There are cakes made with yeast. There are lots of ways to make a cake lighten up, but the most handy, quick way is baking powder and salt. This is one that I like a lot. It's Rumford. It's an old, been around a long time brand. And can you see that it's got instead of being completely in a circle, it's got a flat edge, and that is to help me measure. I need a teaspoon of baking powder, and I've got a set of measuring spoons. This is my 1 teaspoon spoon. And now I don't have to worry about it packing down, or I don't have to fluff it up. I'm gonna just reach in and, well, I am gonna make sure that I've overfilled the spoon, and then I'm gonna go underneath and scrape. And that little contraption they have designed this container to help me flatten out and measure. So I'm gonna put my teaspoon of baking powder right here. So I've got my salt and my baking powder with my flour. Put those out of the way. And now remember, I mixed. I want to get these evenly combined. I don't want all the baking powder to be over here in this corner and none over there. So I'm going to use my whisk to mix it all together. If you don't have a whisk, this isn't as easy, mixing this up you can do with a big spoon. For this, if you don't have a whisk, just grab a nice, good sized fork and just mix it all together. Just go around, lift it up, stir it up. That helps aerate it, and that's distributing the baking powder throughout, so you want every ingredient to work together to make you a wonderful cake. So those are our dry ingredients ready to go. We won't have to stop. Here's our pan ready to go. We won't have to stop. The eggs I'm gonna go ahead and break so that when I'm ready to put them in, I can just move right through smoothly. And I'm just gonna break them into a little bowl. And that also helps me if I have a lot of shell, I can get it out. And sometimes you're separating eggs for a meringue and you're worried about yolk, but in this case, I'm just putting the whole eggs, the 2 of them together in a little bowl. So those will be ready to add quickly. And let's see, other ingredients to measure out. I'm just measuring, I'm not combining anything. It doesn't matter the order in which you do this part. I'm gonna use a 1/2 teaspoon of vanilla. So that's my, that's my teaspoon, 1/4 teaspoon, here's my 1/2. And I'm gonna, actually I remember that I like to put the vanilla into the milk. Otherwise I often forget it. So right now I'm gonna measure it out into one of my little dishes here. And pour that in. You could use almond extract. I love a cake made with almond extract. There's rose water, there's orange flower water, there's lemon extract. You could use any kind of flavoring that you like. And you could even leave it out. You don't have to have that. You don't have to have it. There's mint flavoring. You can experiment and have fun with a lot of things. Oh, I just got the most wonderful vanilla perfume here. All right, so I've got my vanilla measured out. Last thing I need to measure is my milk. This is a 1 cup measure, and you can see how the measurements are shown in red letters, and I'm gonna write that are written on the side. I'm gonna pour my milk in. Now, as I said, I like to put the vanilla into the milk at this point because so many times I have forgotten to do it. For measuring sugar, it's a lot easier. You don't have to worry about it being packed down. I do still overfill and sweep across. That's good enough. So that's my 1 cup of sugar and my ½ cup of butter. Our first job is creaming, and that is putting the butter and the sugar, the soft butter and the sugar together. And for that, I'll need the mixer. Then to that, I'm gonna add the eggs, and then I'll have all the more rich and luscious aspects. And then once I've got those 3 things combined well, we're gonna add the flour and the milk and be ready to go. Got it. I think we've got a beautiful batter that is luscious and golden. See how much bigger it got? Everything came together and created a rich and luscious batter. And let me lift it up and show you how beautifully it has come together. Now, here's my pan, well greased, a little bit of flour. Let's get this in. Let's see. Let's get this in so you can see, and I'm scraping it all here into the middle of the pan. Voila. Scraping. My grandmother could scrape a bowl so that you practically didn't know you needed to wash it because she did not want to waste anything. And I'm a little bit like that, but I also say, you know what? It's more important for me to get it in the oven. That's going to be good. If you have an offset spatula, you can smooth it, but again, you're always gonna end up with some there. This is gonna be absolutely perfect. So, did a little bit for air bubbles, and I'm gonna put it in my 350-degree oven, and I'm gonna check it at 20 minutes. It's gonna be between 20 and 30 minutes, and we're gonna look at it and see when it's done, and also we're gonna use our noses because it will give us an aroma that tells us, check me, or I'm done. All right, let's get it in the oven. Setting my teapot timer, set it for 20 minutes, and we'll be back. It's ready. Let me show you. I took it out and set it on the stove so I could bring it right over. Look at this beauty. You see? Now, how do we know it's done? The brown edges. Can you see how it's golden on the sides? And one of the biggest things to look for is it's kind of pulled away. So instead of being, remember when it was liquid, it was like right up to the edge, but it kind of pulls in a little bit and leaves the sides of the pan. Now it needs to cool before we can take it out. If we tried to take it out now, it would crack into many hot pieces. So first of all, we could put it on a wire rack like that. That's what it's made for. But as I said, if you don't have that, Let's put it on 2 folded kitchen towels and leave it for, you know, maybe, I don't know, 20 minutes or so. And I'll be back to show you what we do with it once it's ready. It's cool enough, I can lift it up, but it's still warm. Ooh, it's warm on the bottom of it's still very warm on the bottom of the pan. Okay, so the first thing I'm gonna do is loosen the sides. I'm just gonna get a butter knife and go gently. I don't wanna scrape the bottom of the pan, but I'm gonna go gently around the outside. And you wanna make sure that your knife, you don't want it to be inside, you don't wanna cut the cake, you want it to be right up against the base of the pan and the side, so that we're loosening it up but not cutting it. So I'm reaching here and going around, staying steady, going around. This side is a little bit more clingy to the side. Can you see I'm getting a little bit scraped up? So here, coming and just going loosely, staying on the edge of the pan. Okay, that's my first step. The second thing I want to do is I want to push it, so I want to loosen the bottom of the cake from the bottom of the pan just a little bit. So I'm giving it just a tap because I want the whole cake to slide a little bit that direction so that it will be willing to come out. All right, that's good. And I'm gonna give it, remember how I gave it a tap before? Give it a tap here. Now, I'm gonna turn it out on the bottom of another cake pan. I could turn it out upside down on this plate, but I want to let it cool with the top side up. So since I want something that's exactly the same size and pretty easy to move around, I'm gonna just use the bottom of this cake pan and do a switcheroo. Let me show you what I'm gonna do. So I'm gonna put this cake pan here and quickly flip and shake. Gonna give it a little tap and see if it will come out. It loosened up. Beautiful. A tiny little bit stuck to the bottom. That doesn't matter. I'm not gonna have that side showing. Now I want to let it cool with that top side up. So I turned it out on this one. And now the plate that I wanna use for serving the cake is this, and I'll give it another flip. And there's my cake, top side up. Now I want it to cool the rest of the way. So I'm gonna leave it with the lid on and let it cool completely. And then we'll come back and I'll show you some ways that we can serve it that'll be extra delicious. Welcome back, cake bakers. It's time for the good part. Let's enjoy the wonderful cake. It's ready to go. It's a beautiful cake. It's fine. You can eat it right now. But to add a little bit of dazzle, a little bit of glamour, a real simple thing to do is to take confectioner's sugar, powdered sugar, and I've got a little a strainer, a little sifter, and I'm just gonna pour a little bit of confectioner's sugar through the sifter and then just let it snow, let it snow, let it snow all over the top of the cake. It's going to get on the side of this plate, which is absolutely fine. That's extra snow. If you didn't want that, you could do this on a separate plate and then move the cake, but that just gives it a lovely little finish and a tiny little bit of extra sweetness that I enjoy, that I love. Okay, so that's one thing. The second thing we could do is we could serve it with some berries. So let's cut a piece and let me show you. All right, so I've got a serrated knife, which is ideal. You could use just a good sharp knife, would be fine, but a serrated knife is ideal because that will cut through and without tearing and give you nice smooth edges. So notice I'm sawing, coming down the sides, and I've got my little, you could use a butter knife for this, but this should take it out just fine. Beautiful. And I'm gonna place this slice on a pretty plate, and it's ready to go, ready to enjoy. I could also add some berries. I've got fresh strawberries. I've got sugar on them, and that's made a little bit of juice. And I can just put some strawberries on the side here and have a little bit of that juice to flavor the cake. That's a way to go. I could make kind of almost like a sundae cake a la mode. Why not? I'm gonna cut another piece, but I'm gonna put a scoop of ice cream on one side and thump, and some strawberries across the top. And I've got a lovely strawberry sundae. And of course, is anybody thinking ahead? Perfect for strawberry shortcake. Of course, strawberry shortcake is is traditionally in the South, it's a very sweet biscuit that's split open, but why not use a cake to make strawberry shortcake? So here's one beautiful way to enjoy it. Here's another beautiful way to enjoy it. And of course, it's wonderful just plain. And so here's our beautiful cake. I'm gonna put it on my cake stand to enjoy and to show if I've got company coming over, they'll see what they've got to look forward to. Just so many ways to, you want me to taste it? Of course. So many ways to enjoy it. Let's try this one. First, just the cake, and it's so tender. It's lovely. That bite was lovely, just cake. Wonderful with strawberries. I don't even have to try it with the ice cream to know that that's great. And whipped cream, it just gets better and better. Chocolate sauce, why not? Dulce de leche, sure. Nothing that you can't do. It freezes well. For those of you who are bakers already, I hope I reminded you how simple and rewarding it is to make a cake. And if you're new at it and you haven't baked before, remember, it's just as simple as put a few things together and give it a little time in the oven. You can make a wonderful cake at home from scratch. And please let me know if you're a baker already, if you've made this, let me know if you tried it. I'd love to hear from you in the comments. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you for baking along with me. And I will look forward to seeing you in the next video. Bye now.